All the technologies behaved and worked. Thank goodness. We are here live today. Good afternoon. It's Thursday, September 7th at 12:30. Welcome to Prasada Talks. Just in case we haven't met, I am Meg Townsend, Director of Program Development and Whole Being Guide for Prasada. I am here with Alice. Alice, tell us you.
Hi, everybody. So glad to see you here today. I am the founder and CEO of Prasada. Somewhere long ago, almost 15 years now, I had this vision that we had many talented people that could help people in the workplace and in life. And so that was the vision. And here we are today, many years later.
Here we are today. Happy September. It is a new month. And so we have a theme of this is, I might say this every month, but I think it's for real this time. This is one of my favorite themes and favorite things that we explore and teach our strengths. So the theme this month is strengths, and we're exploring that in a couple different ways, shapes, and forms. Do you want to just mention that, Alice, of just all the lenses that we can view strengths through?
Sure. So the word strengths, a lot of us think about strengths as the physical strength. So this month we're definitely going to explore that and we'll talk about that. We also think about, and we really, especially in the last few years, started to focus on what is our mental strength, our resilience, our adaptability. And then what we really love is this idea of character strengths. And so you might have somewhere along your professional work life done some sort of a strengths assessment. There are all different kinds that have sort of gone into and out of fad over the years. And so this one is really comes from the world of positive psychology and has really been, I think, for me, for us, for our team, and for the clients that we work with, something that's just really been a big revelation and really meeting our needs of kind of what we need right today and in today's what Marty Seligman now calls the whitewater change of work and life, and kind of where we are right now.
And what was your experience with these VIA strengths, Alice, and why were they sort of the ones that you've chosen to really focus on and invest our time and energy into sharing?
Yeah, so I had done strengths finders and some other strengths, over the course of my professional life in different leadership training programs and at different companies. And it wasn't until I did a 1 year certificate in positive psychology with the Whole Being Institute. And really, when I was learning about positive psychology, you learn that Marty Seligman and his colleagues in the 70s really did a comprehensive study around the world of what are the characteristics, what are our virtues that allow us to live a good life. And so they asked people in all different kinds of countries, and they basically came up with this framework of 24 character strengths. And so in that 1 year program, we were introduced to these, and we did a series of 30-day habit practices where we might focus on one. And so it really gave me a deep dive into what these were. And the really great part was that the focus on in positive psychology is not that we're going to feel super happy all the time, unicorns, balloons, and glitter, but that we're going to, instead of focus on what's not working, we're going to actually focus on what is working. And we're going to look at what are the habits and the practices, the innate superpowers that we already possess that are going to help us navigate those really hard times of life. I like to talk about this, what gives us the ability to keep going. We talk a lot about, like, people will say, oh, I want my children to be happy, or I just want to be happy. And I think that I talk a lot about how, I want for my children and I want for myself and I want for my friends that capacity when life is hard. We're all going to have those hard spots. To know that I have a toolbox that is always accessible to me, and that I'm going to be able to look at, do I need a hammer? Do I need a wrench? Do I need a screwdriver? Like, what do I have in that toolbox always available to me that I can use to help me bridge those gaps whenever it's really, really bumpy? So that's kind of the way I almost think about them, as like a compass also. How do we use these to kind of know where we are, know where we're going? But it's really been an amazing tool for me. And then I've also just seen how our team, has used them. And it's sort of that, love your neighbor as you love yourself kind of idea, that when we start to appreciate our own strengths and really get familiar with them, and we start to appreciate other strengths, it really enhances our relationships.
Yeah.
And life, when we were a kid, it used to be like, oh, I don't like group projects. I just want to do it on my own. But life is a group project. And almost everything we do is in some form of relational configuration. So how do we get better at relational configurations, and relationships in general? And that is based on gratitude appreciation.
Hmm. Thank you for that context, because I think that's important, just to kind of lay that foundation of where are these coming from and what structure are we using as we explore strengths this month in all of our different programs, and newsletters and posts. One thing that we said about this that hopefully enticed people to come was like, these strengths are your superpowers, and often they're kind of hiding just in plain sight because you might not even recognize or realize them about yourself, because they're just such an essential, sort of effortless thing that you do. And that's why the test is such a really, the survey is such a really valuable tool, because it takes about 5 to 10 minutes, and you just go through, and then it just ranks them in order. And maybe let's bring up the slide real quick, just so people have some context of what are these strengths. It ranks them in order from 1 to 24. Now, we all have all of them. So if, self-regulation shows up as your 24, it doesn't mean you don't have it, or, that it's not a part of you. It just means that that might be a strength that takes a little more effort for you versus, I know, Alice, one of your top strengths is creativity, correct?
Yeah.
And that's just like, you're just kind of exuding creativity all day, every day. And, as you encountered, because when I took the survey the first time, 5 years ago, maybe now, we've been sort of working with these, maybe even more. I was really surprised at what came up, and have been really kind of studying and observing those as I've been incorporating these as a practice, as a contemplation for myself. But what about you? When you first kind of took your strengths, did you find some that came up and you were like,
Well, I think you and I have a similar one. We have this one that's down here at the bottom. This is appreciation of beauty and excellence. And it's one of the ones, some of these are pretty straightforward, like teamwork or honesty or judgment, curiosity, creativity. Those are pretty straightforward. We can understand what those mean. And those are not sort of a huge surprise for us. We worked with a group last week, and a guy talked in his introduction about how he was a referee, and then we looked at his skills, and he had fairness and teamwork as some of his strengths. So some of them make perfect sense. This one that's called appreciation of beauty and excellence, it's not only about liking beautiful things. I am an architect. I have an eye. I really like not only beautiful things, but mastery and craft. But also when I see a person who is really kind of in their zone, we talk about flow, somebody who's just really passionate and in alignment, and that they've mastered something to the level of excellence. And so that has come in handy just in terms of noticing that in other people, sending an email to thank somebody for something that they did. This morning I was at my new ShopRite, and I went over to the customer service desk and I said, I just want to thank you guys. This is a beautiful new ShopRite. It looks fantastic. You guys got it done on time as you advertised. So congratulations. And they were like, oh, thank you. So, most people coming to the customer service desk are not saying that. They're complaining about something. And I know you've used that one also. That's just a no sort of stress pressure. It's just something that I naturally do. But you have used that one in some really pretty tough, hard times.
yeah. And that was really when it finally, because that's every time I take the test about once a year, just because it does vacillate ever so slightly. Usually it's the same 5, maybe one from that's like 7 pops up into the top 5, but appreciation of beauty and excellence consistently is my number one strength. And when I first got that, I was like, what does this even mean? How is this bringing value into the world? How is this bringing value into my life? Like, what is this strength? I'm like, I don't have, perseverance. I have appreciation of beauty and excellence. But as I've really been looking at it and studying it over the past few years, and went through an exceptionally difficult time losing my mother last year. And when I was out in Arizona taking care of her in hospice, that's when I really noticed. Well, first of all, I noticed one, that's a gift that she gave to me, because she has that as one of her top strengths. And even in her final days, she was appreciating just the most simple, beautiful things. So that was something we shared together. But then also, it was a way that I just didn't know I was using to just regulate myself and keep myself going each day, because, it was very hard. It was the most exhausted I've ever been in my life. Um, and one day I was just kind of at the end of my rope, and I was just like, oh, I don't know if I can do this anymore. And I went for a drive. And as I'm driving, first of all, it's Arizona, so it's very different and already beautiful to me. But as I'm driving, these beams of sunlight come out of the sky, in just this most exceptional way. And then there's thousands of butterflies. I kid you not, Alice, thousands of butterflies. I actually got nervous to drive the car because I'm like, am I murdering butterflies right now? Thousands of butterflies just out of nowhere, all around the car. And if I didn't have appreciation of beauty and excellence kind of higher up, I may not have noticed those things, right? I may just have driven along and missed those, but I have that keen eye, and I just like noticed it. And it was just this balm to my spirit of just like, okay, like there's still beauty in this world. You're okay. Like you can keep going. Just keep looking for like those glimmers of beauty, because those get you through. Um, so yeah, that's one way and that really solidified like this is a valuable strength for myself. But also during that time, I was doing a lot of sharing about the experience and about seeing those glimmers of beauty and experience to others, and people reflecting back. And I just did that for me. I wasn't like, now I'm the spokesperson for grief, but a lot of people reflected back like, your sharing has helped me with my grief, or has helped me with, my experience of that same thing. So it was like something that also was others were resonating with as well. So yeah, that's my story and I just continue to notice it, even in just simple ways of developing connections with people. And now that I have such an awareness and like an agility with it,
Mm-hmm.
it already comes naturally. It's effortless. It energizes me. But now that I have this agility with it, it's really fun to play with it. And it is building my confidence in certain areas, especially socially, of like connecting with people. And when we were preparing for this, and as we didn't really prepare for this because we've talked about this forever, but you said one of the reasons that we really want to work with strengths is because it helps to build our confidence, right? And why? Tell me a little more about that.
Yeah. And, your experience of when we're using a strength, it actually creates a physical, like it made you feel better, even in that really, really, really difficult time. Whenever you tapped into that naturally, you felt better.
Mhm.
I went through a period, and even, during the pandemic, I would go outside and my practice was to get really close and take a picture of a plant and then see really up close, see all the veins, and that would physiologically make me feel better. So our strengths in using them and being able to say like, oh no, I'm going to go out for a 5-minute walk and take a picture of one plant. I know that can help balance my nervous system and help me feel better. Yeah, the build confidence is just so interesting. So Katie Milkman has a great book called How to Change Getting from Where You Are to Where You Want to Be. Make sure I wanted to get the title on that. And she talks about when people set goals. And one of the reasons why people don't set goals is because they don't have the confidence that they can control their behavior and their motivation to change. They've tried to change, they haven't been able to change. Therefore, they don't have the confidence that they can make a change. Okay, so next question is, how do you build someone's confidence? I'm sure there are books and books and books that are written on that. The idea is that, again, stress and when we are really in a dark place is when we don't feel like we have resources to make our way through time, energy, money, skills. So the discovery of this toolbox of innate skills that we have gives us something to hold on to, that we can say, I am going to go for a walk because I know being in nature, my appreciation of beauty and excellence is going to make me feel a little bit better. And when I feel a little bit better, my nervous system goes from the fight or flight or freeze back into, it broadens. We broaden and build on the positive emotions, even if they're the teeny tiniest little just turn of the tide. You were not going to start skipping that day, but you needed something to help you just keep going, to be able to go back because you knew you were going to have to go back in circumstance with your mother, and you wanted to hold space for her and you wanted to be there. So it's not that these are going to provide miracles, but they're going to be the like, okay, I can take another breath, I can keep going. And so, so that's the first. These do help us build confidence, and they do help us build from the positive. Like, what can I do? Like, life is hard, and there are circumstances that we are not going to be able to control that feel really, really difficult. But yet, when we can find it's like a little toehold. How do you get a toehold on one thing, and then the next thing, and then the next thing? So this broaden and build, developed by Barbara Fredrickson, is that we are building on these, again, just the tide turning to a positive emotion. Because when we're in those places of hard times and that feeling of, I can't handle this, that's called a downward spiral. And actually, our brain has fewer and fewer resources when we get into that thing, because it's putting certain chemicals into our body that are just that sort of desperation and lack of hope feeling. I mean, we all have been in those places. The other thing that we learn about these particular tools is that we talk a lot about post-traumatic stress disorder when challenging things happens, and especially in the military. Military is trained knowing that they're going to be going in for extremely difficult circumstances. When we know that there's a possibility that if we can keep a toehold to just get through, and eventually over time, in most cases, we'll move out of those really awful circumstances, and that we can start, as we get a little bit more perspective, we can start to say, what did I learn? What did I gain? And sometimes it's, oh, I learned a really great lesson. I'll never do this or that again. And other times it's just, you have a new appreciation for life. You have a new appreciation that just says, you know what? I can't change what happened or the loss of that thing, but I can so appreciate the things that are working right now in this moment in my life.
Yeah. How have strengths helped you in that reframing?
Yeah. I think that, my creativity, it's been interesting to sort of see, and we talk about, is it essential? I'm always going to be looking at 5 different ways that I can do something. We could do it this way, we could do it that way, we could do it that way. And it's no accident that I became an architect, because that's kind of, you have to envision something and then you have to manage to make it happen. But one of the things that we talk about in our programs are this possibility of underuse and this possibility of overuse. So one great example is that, Meg and I have, I am a person who I will come to every meeting with 5 creative ideas. And it's not super helpful on a team that's trying to focus on something. Meg, on the other hand, has the ability to take in something, and she's going to be more of what I would call the integrator. A lot of times I'm being the visionary, like, what about this? What about this? And Meg is more the integrator, and she's thinking about and she's got this strength set to say, I don't know, how is that going to work in with what we're doing? How does it work for the workload? Are we going to have to change the content? And it used to be, and Sarah on our team is also, we love coming to a meeting. La, 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 la.
Sometimes it's just the 3 of us. I'm like, okay, here we go. We're going to do 18 different things and change everything now.
Exactly. So I have had to really recognize, like, yes, whenever we're in a situation like suddenly in the pandemic, we had to totally rewrite all of our programs because we were online, that's a great time to quickly be able to pull up, these are the 5 options. Let's pick one. Let's get moving.
Mm-hmm.
So that we have some choices, we can sift through those. However, I have so learned to appreciate, and we've adjusted to where when we have ideas, I can say these are three ideas, and how about let's everybody put them in their hopper, and we don't have to make a decision right now, and then we can come back and get the feedback. I will have come off the high of the creative idea, and then Meg will have had time to say, well, I think it could work this way, or this way. And we've built structures within our team to make sure that we're getting Meg's perspective on how it's going to integrate in all those, and my creativity has both been honored, and that we're leveraging both of those skills to the max. And also, I have an appreciation of like, thank you so much for thinking about those things, because I wasn't thinking about those things. And you have an appreciation for my creativity when I'm not overusing it.
Yes.
And we can laugh. And I mean, that's part of just self-awareness. And I think that's the other mirror that this provides for us, to do that. I think the other way, and I want to tie this back into our sort of the physical strengths, is that and Brian Johnson, who really has done a lot of work, he's got an app, that I think it's Heroic. And what he talks about is there's one strength that is really about the physical strength, and that's really zest. And so we can't underestimate that if we don't have the physical resilience, and we don't have ways that we're developing our functional movement. And a big shout out to our friend Marco Dapke, who's on our team. He's the owner of CrossFit MFP in Havertown. He's my CrossFit coach. But this idea of like, we have to have a base physical foundation of strength in order to be able to know which tool on our character strengths. And even when we talk about resilience, if we're exhausted and tired all the time, it's harder to use those tools. The tools are still there, but we kind of have gone through this like, we're tired of talking about movement and exercise and all this other kind of stuff. And can we just skip all that physical stuff and just go into all the mental skills and tools? But it all has to be based in a foundation of just keeping your physical body going and energetic. Zest is really about that energy, that spark. And many of our groups, we do programs and no one has zest. Now, it doesn't mean no one has any energy. We just
No
met
one has zest at the top. We want
at
to
the
be
top.
clear. We all have zest, but
Yes.
might be in smaller droplets in
And
a majority.
we were working with a group about 2 weeks ago, and we looked. They did all their surveys, and one person had zest, and then we were like, of course, it's the person who's running, the executive director of a nonprofit who just has nonstop energy, just an amazing human being. So it totally made sense.
Mm-hmm.
But that's one of them that I think that we don't really talk enough about, that this, we have to have this foundation of physical strength. And also, when I think about when I go to CrossFit every morning, it's hard. 4 years later, it's still really hard. But I'm using my perseverance, my love of learning. I like learning new things in order to get me through the physical challenges of that morning workout. And that building that physical strength is what gives me the capacity to keep going. I have the energy to keep going and then know what tool to use. So that's where these things really intertwine. And I think that's one of the things that we really try to do in our programs.
I like that practical application too, because circling back to like you were just talking about like habits and building confidence. And yes, like getting to the gym or whatever your physical routine is takes effort. And so we can actually use our strengths to kind of support us in doing that. I think about when I go to the gym, I bring my curiosity with me. And that's because I'm always just asking them like, what's working right now? How's that? It's like an anatomy lesson to me because I'm a movement professional. And so I want to know more from their wisdom of like, how's this all working together? How's this movement going to? And that gets me through the, I don't want to be here in this moment. And then I'm enjoying it eventually. So that's another way we can just use our strengths to really support us in doing these things that we know and want to do as an additional just motivator.
Absolutely. And, there is something about, and the thing about CrossFit and functional movement is, 1 week you're lifting a 10-pound weight, and then you're getting stronger and you're doing a whole variety of movements. And CrossFit has a science to it. We're actually going to be doing a program on Friday, Marco's going to be explaining functional movement. So
Which
definitely
is
check out that.
tomorrow.
Yeah. Oh yeah, tomorrow.
I'm
Tomorrow's
putting
Friday.
that link in the chat in case anybody wants to check out our events around strengths coming up. Sorry to interrupt you, Alice. And I'm also putting in the chat, just in case people pop off in our last moments, the link to the survey. So take the survey. I'll be able to see your results, your top 5, and print those out and bring those to the couple programs that we're doing this month. Next Wednesday, we have a strengths at work. So it's going to be more continued conversation about it, but more so at the workplace. And then next Friday, Alice is doing a webinar about strengths, your compass for life. I'm probably messing up the title, but it's something like that. So that's an even deeper dive. So if you take that before next week, print it out, you'll have that tool to really dig in a little bit deeper.
And I wanted to say, going back to this idea of like, why do we or don't we set goals, and this confidence? There is definitely something about just the thrill of like, last week I was using a 5-pound weight, and this week suddenly I was able to use a 7-pound weight. Those are the little things, and we had those little joys when we were kids. You tried to skip, you couldn't skip. But as adults, how do we actually see that physical progression to say, I am strong, I am building the confidence? And especially as as you age, the mindset is you're just going to be deteriorating. I mean, that's what the culture wants us to believe, versus, can I physically be getting stronger and building my physical body so that I can do the things that I want to do, but also the rest of the day I go, hey, I lifted that 25-pound weight today. I have never lifted that weight, and I'm going to get through this meeting. We're going to have this hard conversation. I'm confident that I have the zest and the stamina to do that. So it's another way that we kind of interweave both the physical and the character strengths and the mental, emotional strengths.
Thank you so much. We're rounding the corner to the end of the hour. Anybody who's here in the Zoom room with us, if you have any questions, share those in the chat. If anything comes up. And Alice, what do you want to add?
I just wanted to add that, so it's a free survey on the on the VIA websites, Virtues in Action. But there's also a kids version, which is for kids under the age of 17. And I have used it with some teenagers that I met, didn't get to know well. And I know other parents have used that, because often we have these conversations and we're butting heads with our teenagers, and we can't really recognize necessarily what their strengths are. So I highly recommend, if you are a parent, and even if you have a young child, you can even ask them some of the questions. But that appreciation of what their skills and strengths are is really a lot of information, to where you can, again, instead of just nagging them about cleaning their room every time, you can say, hey, I see you using your strengths, because we know we have to have a certain number of positive interactions versus just negative interactions for our relationships to be healthy. So that's just another great resource. Your teenagers will appreciate it.
We'll have to ask Sarah. She'll have a story for us next week. I know she has done some strength spotting with her son a bit. And let's leave people with this. Just little, what's a quick habit of starting to get to know this vocabulary of strengths and using your strengths?
Yeah, I think if you just think about, like, what is a time when you were at your best?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe what strength were you using? Were you using curiosity? So today, maybe think about a time when you were really awesome, and then see if you can discern what strength were you using, and then maybe how you might use that today to navigate something that was challenging.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for joining us today. We see you in the Zoom room. We will be sending out the recording of this, and we hope to see you tomorrow. Marco will be doing at 12:30 functional movement workshop and 101, and he is a fount of information, so definitely check that out. And then next Wednesday and Friday we also have other programs, so check out the events link, and we'll see you again soon. Until our paths cross again, please be well, and thanks for your time today.
Thanks, everybody.